how they did it is that they would have like an overseer. So an overseer would take care of all the people working on the various clothes being made out of something like that.
What would they do with it?
So what they would do with that is they would take, once they got it all brushed out, they would put it on a loom, okay? And then they would spin it and make material or make something like this right here. So you can kind of feel how it is right there. It's sort of coarse and rough, but then it kind of gets a little bit better when they spin it, okay? Gets a little bit smoother, a little bit better. And then they would take it and they would make thread out of it, okay? And they would take that, and that's what they would make clothes with it. They would get flax seeds, all sorts of things. So back in the day, you know, the enslaved people, they had basically 1 or 2 suits of clothes. That was it. And as you can see, it would require a lot of work to make your clothes back then. So that's what she was doing as a young girl. And when she got done that day, she went back to the house, okay, to the mistress's, the master's house, because she also worked in the house taking care of kids that were her age and younger. All right, so Miss Brodus asked her to go to the store and get some stuff with the cook. All right, so Minty, she took and she had a head wrap. So she wrapped that around her head and she came to the store. Well, when she got to the store, this guy, Thomas Barnett, who was, again, not a very nice person, he was in here and he was trying to corral a young boy, okay? We're not sure why he was trying to get this boy, why the boy was here. All of that's kind of been lost in history. But what we do know is that when Tubman walked in, or Minty, she happened to walk in at the worst time that she could, because old Barnett, he picked up a counterweight off of the store counter, right? And he heaved it as hard as he could. He heaved that counterweight. Well, it didn't hit the boy. It hit Minty right square in the forehead. Now you can feel that and see that if somebody was chunking that at you and it hit you in the forehead, it would be pretty serious. But thank God, literally speaking, that she had that bandana, that wrap on her head. So it broke the impact of that weight that was thrown. But when it hit her in the head, it basically penetrated it, and it was so bad that it drove part of that shawl into her forehead. But it knocked her out unconscious. She was severely injured. Now, thank the good Lord up above that she had that shawl, because it did help break the impact, okay? If not, then, you know, we may have, history may be totally different what it is right now with Minty Ross or Harriet Tubman. Anyway, she did manage to recover from this severe blow in the head. It took her some time, but while she was recovering, she was still made to go out in the fields and work and things like that, and she commented that she was trying to recover, her head would still bleed, and she was still made to go out into the fields and work. So after that incident, all right, little Minty, she, from that severe injury, she had this sleeping spells or narcolepsy, or, you know, whatever term you may want to use. But what would happen is she could be working or doing stuff and she would just drop right off to sleep, okay? She didn't mean to do that, but from this severe blow in the head, that's what would happen to her, all right? So that was not good for her owners, the Broduses, or anybody she may have been leased out to, because you can't be working out in the field and fall. When he died, Mrs. Brodus, what she had of great value was her enslaved people. So she figures out, I've got to sell off my enslaved people. Well, when you're talking about selling off your enslaved people, in her case, that was Minty, her sisters, her brothers, her mother, right? So think about that, right? So you're in a family unit, and all of a sudden, you're going to be separated. Well, there could be nothing worse than that thought, right? I mean, you can think about that today and how that would affect you. Well, it affected them the same exact way. She was no different, and those folks were no different than what we are right now. So Tubman, Minty, realizes that she's got to try to escape and try to get her family away, all right? Because there was talk about other slaves escaping. You know, she wasn't the first one to do that. So her and her two brothers, Harry and Ben, they decide in September of 1849, we are out of here, right? So they go in the woods, and they're escaping, people hunting them and all that kind of stuff, mosquitoes biting them. Harry and Ben, the two brothers, you know, we're going to try to go back and suffer the consequences, because tromping through these swamps and marshes and woods and mosquitoes and snakes, that is just too much for us. But little Minty, again, just a small child, she keeps on going, right? And she gets to Canada. When she gets to Canada, she realizes, hey, that I have made it. But, you know, everything that is important to me is still back in Bucktown, Dorchester County, Maryland. So, as we know, she comes back numerous times. She ends up getting her family out of Dorchester County, gets them all to freedom, and, you know, she gets married, and it's Harriet Tubman, and it's this great person that we all love and admire for these great feats. And we should, because if you think about it right now, just to put it in perspective of Harriet Tubman, and, you know, I tell people when they come in here that you have to really admire such a person that's a little young girl, okay, probably 13, 14, some of the age of some of y'all right here. In 1849, she decides she's leaving by herself because her brothers wouldn't go this time. She leaves by herself. She's being eaten by mosquitoes and all that kind of stuff. So she is a young African-American girl in 1849. She was a slave. She was being hunted. She couldn't read or write, you know, and yet she was able to accomplish these huge, great feats, you know, that we all love and admire now. And, you know, if you think about that, that is an awesome story for somebody to be able to achieve these great things, you know. And like, it wouldn't matter if she was an adult. Nobody could really achieve those things unless they had some sort of help. So to me, now I'm not going to try to preach, all right? So, but to me, you have to think about it. So I believe that God, all right, and I have to tell from this side because this is important, I think, a part of the story. I think that God took this young girl, right, that he was able to use. And how he was able to use her was through this very tragic situation. And that happens to us in our life, you know. We see these most difficult times in our life, and we think it's, you know, the worst thing. But sometimes we can use that for our benefit or for God's benefit. So I think that she came in here, she put that shawl around her head, and I don't think that was by accident. She come in here at that time and got hit in the head with this, you know, with this heavy counterweight. It almost kills her, knocks her out, gives her a sleeping disease, okay? So now what? So now he's able to use and talk to her and communicate her, because, you know, if God was to say, you know, hey, how you doing? I want you to do this, you'd be like, whoa, what is that? But when you fall off into this sleeping spell, he can communicate with her in that way. And, you know, so he took these other situations and, you know, her out in the woods and her being on this logging crew and getting hired out. To me, all of this was part of a big plan, right? It wasn't by accident, you know, it was part of a much bigger plan for all of us, okay? And he was able to use her and achieve these remarkable things, you know? So when you think about that, and this incident happening here in the store, that's what, it gives me goosebumps. Even I've told this story a zillion times, so believe me. It still, though, gives me goosebumps, and inspires me to think that he used this place, this spot, right, to affect the history that affects everybody. I don't care if you're white, black, or what you are. Harriet Tubman has changed our lives, right? So, it's an awesome story. It's one that